featured there as well.
Thank you so much. So, before we start with an interesting conversation with Naiyya, I'll give a little bit of brief on the book too, on how I got in touch with Naiyya. So, I started writing my book, Awakening the Rainmaker, when I was pregnant for the first time with my little baby girl. And I did a lot of reading, and I was overwhelmed and surprised to see that there was not much written for Indian women. And what surprised me more was as many as 38% women entering the workforce, but only 18 to 20% reaching up to mid management levels, because most of them leak out of the corporate ecosystem during their journeys of pregnancy and motherhood. And that's when I decided that no, I want to write something for Indian women and bring forward the stories of women in India managing their work and their motherhood journeys along. And I was so happy to come across Naiyya. Her story has been so inspirational, and the way candidly she shared all the details of how she managed her pregnancy, and then during her she was at a very important stage in her startup, ramping up for a fundraise and successfully doing that too. So, Naiyya, let's share more details for our audience as well. So, why don't you share your journey of motherhood and entrepreneurship? How were you able to manage both of these together in tandem?
So before I dive into that, right, I just want the audience to also get to know Nishtha a little bit better because I think she's super inspiring herself. So Nishtha, you've been an investment banker, right? You worked globally, you worked in India. And when I first met you, I think it was Sonam from Round Glass, one of our investors who introduced us, right?
Yeah.
And Sonam introduced you basically saying Nishtha's going to be writing a book and a whole book on stories of women in the corporate workforce as well as women in leadership positions in entrepreneurship. I
Yeah.
remember being really fascinated by that, Nishtha, because a lot of people talk about making a change, but I just want to congratulate you. You actually went ahead and wrote a whole book, right? And you interviewed so many amazing women. And for me, when I was reading the book, I thought it was really inspiring, right?
Thank
So
you.
I just want to call that out one time before our audience because I think you've just sort of dived into my story, but I think your story is super super exciting as well.
Thank you so much, Naiyya. It's actually, it helps, women building each other up. I just love that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think coming back to your question in terms of like, how do I balance motherhood and work? I mean, honestly, both are part of my life,
Hmm.
right? And I don't think of it. And, frankly, again, I mean, how many men would be asked that question? Not too many,
True.
right? So,
True.
I think an open question to us as women is that, first of all, when we get asked this question, right, what does it mean to us? For
Hmm.
me, I think the answer is that it basically, I mean, both are very much an integral part of my life.
Hmm.
I can't imagine one without the other. So
True.
there is frankly no option but to have
Hmm.
both and to
Yeah.
move both along as seamlessly as possible. So I'll
Right.
give you a few examples of what I do. Therefore, my child Arya is 3 years old. She just turned 3 yesterday. We
Hmm.
just celebrated her birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yes, we did. And fortunately, because I run a company called Baby Chakra, and we're all about moms and kids, right? I have the opportunity of first of all sharing, with Arya a little bit about the journeys of the other Baby Chakra kids on our platform, right? So she
Right.
gets exposed to them. We have a community of mothers and a community of kids, right? That's one.
Hmm.
Number two, we're actually launching products as we speak, Baby Chakra products. So Arya is actually my first test consumer, right? So she looks at the branding, the packaging, she smells the baby shampoos and or the baby lotions, etc. And she's like, does she like them, not like them, right? So I think Arya is a very, very integral part of my life. So I
True.
think in terms of balancing, I think it's a seamless integration versus a balance.
Yeah. So, Naya, that's very interesting. And that is something which I talk about in the book too. That somewhere we as women need to walk away from being multitasking divas. You're right. At the end of the day, even you have 24 hours in your day, right? And as is expected from a man, that even if they can have a career and a family life along, a woman can do that too. But many women struggle with things like delegating or really having some practical approach on really how to do it all. That's the reason, they tend up struggling, they end up, struggling, or they have that mom's guilt in place with them. So what is your advice to most women out there on how they can practically do it all? Because it's clear, even in the book, through your story, through mine, it is possible to do it all in today's world. But how do we really, implement that practically for most of your baby chakra moms out there? What would be your advice to them?
So Nishta, I was very influenced by this. I think Satya Nadella probably said this, right, about the glass balls. right?
Hmm.
And I think about when you're juggling and the different aspects to your life that you have as a
Hmm.
person, right? One
Right.
is work, one is family, one is friends, one is
Hmm.
your own aspiration or your own sort of way of being, right? I mean, just discovering yourself. I think at different points in time, you're juggling these balls, right?
Hmm.
If you're lucky, you juggle all these balls very seamlessly together. But
Right.
sometimes I think what we realize is that one ball, which is maybe a glass ball of family, right,
Hmm.
or a glass ball of, let's say, your your work at a very critical point in time, that
Hmm.
is something you can't keep juggling, right? So I think you have to keep on keeping an eye out in
Hmm.
terms of what is most critical at this point in time, and what if it drops
Hmm.
will break permanently, right?
Right.
And then take a call accordingly. I think that has been the answer for me. So, for instance, when I was pregnant, and I talked about the story in the book with you, Nishta,
Hmm.
when I was pregnant, and I was 8.5 months pregnant, and I was frankly waddling, right? I was actually very, very big. Arya was a big baby,
Yeah.
but I was waddling into investor meetings because I knew I had to raise money then.
Wow.
There was no option. So
Right.
literally the day after I gave birth, I was actually on my phone checking on like what the term sheets were, right? What was the status of the lawyers,
Hmm.
right? And that was the reality I had to basically live with, because if we didn't have money, we would have had
Hmm.
to shut shop,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I
That's.
think that's reality for all of us. So I think depending on what is the criticality at that point in time is what you need to focus on.
I think that's a very important point, and this has drawn out on so many other conversations. Like Reba Chaco is one of the interviewees, one of our top corporate lawyers, and she says the same thing, that at the end of the day, make your choices, and as soon as you're not as far as you're not coerced into making that choice, you're making it on your own terms. It is the right choice. Like stop second guessing yourself and be confident with your choice and move on. So let me move to another question. Naya, you mentioned that, of course, you were pregnant when you were doing a fundraise, and to be an entrepreneur in India, where at the end of the day, still, like the numbers are clear there. It's still 80% a men's world out there. So, did you face any explicit or unconscious biases in your journey as an entrepreneur, and how did you tackle those?
So we did, Nishta. I mean, I did personally, of course, like, when I'd moved back, and I've shared the story a few times, when I'd moved back from the US, right? I was asked, and this is when I was married, but, certainly not considering having a family at that point in time, very young,
Hmm.
right? But I was asked, what happens when you have a family?
Hmm.
What happens to the company?
Right.
Right? Or I've actually been in calls with investors where I've had maybe, my CFO on call with me,
Hmm.
right? And they've actually addressed questions to him versus to me,
Oh.
right? Assuming I don't know my numbers. So I think those have happened.
Hmm.
But Nishta, I think what I'm very, very positive about, that has changed. And that's truly changed. And it's changing as we speak. And the reason this is changing is because, there are more and more stories coming out of women who are successful,
Right.
right? And who have made it big despite all the odds stacked against them,
Hmm.
right? And I think like a seminal picture that I remember from like last year's, of course, and it was circulated in all our family WhatsApp groups, was the Nika public offering,
Right.
public listing, right? Where you had a woman in a pink sari basically taking her
Hmm.
company public,
True.
right? So I think these stories of success are now reshaping the narrative,
Hmm.
right? And I think people are definitely looking at women and entrepreneurship
Hmm.
as a very distinct possibility, and with a very clear track record of success.
True.
So I think it is changing for sure, Nishta, and that's what gives me a lot of hope and optimism.
Yeah, I think that's bang on. You're right, and especially what Falguni did, define not just gender barriers but also age barrier is something which is getting talked about. Because
Yes.
when it comes to stereotyping women, it's not just to do with gender, but it's as you said, stage of your life, whether you're planning motherhood or not, and this stage of your age you're at. So that's actually bang on. So Naya, you talked about Arya as well, the way she's like your first test consumer when it comes to baby chakra products. So on motherhood, what is your approach, towards her as a mother? Does gender anywhere play a role in your mind? Like how are you? What is your upbringing philosophy?
Nishta, I think we're all very influenced by the circumstances we have ourselves grown up in, correct?
Hmm.
So my mother is a very, very independent woman, right?
Hmm.
She was in the civil services. She's actually told us stories growing up about how she's been in riots, interact with very sort of severe circumstances of, custodial rape cases, or, interacted with domestic abuse survivors, and how to like support them and to like give them new opportunities, etc., right? So I think for us growing up, and it was my sister and I, right? So there were two girls in the family. So we never really felt there was a distinction between men and women
Right.
growing up, or between a boy and a girl, because we didn't experience anything different in the way my parents interacted with each other as men and women, as a
Right.
man and a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly not like in any different way like that we were raised, the access to education that we got,
Mm-hmm.
or the fact that we could go out for our extracurricular sports activities,
Mm-hmm.
whatever social events we wanted to. We never had any restrictions.
Right.
I think that really shapes the way I want to raise Arya. My husband and I want to raise Arya because Sandeep and I are doing this jointly,
Right.
right? And I think the way like but we've also started making a few iterations in the way we now address maybe her future choices. So, for instance, we will never say when she gets married and has and a husband, right? When we're talking about, let's say, 20 years, 30 years, we'll say her partner, if she so chooses to have one,
Right.
right? In our head, we're reframing the narrative more and more, right? Because I mean, she could turn out to be, she could choose to be like gay, she could choose to not marry, she could choose to, do whatever, right? I
True.
think it's important to start changing our narrative as parents today, so
Hmm.
we don't sort of suppress what a
Right.
child may grow into or may have naturally, as sort of choices going forward.
That is so bang on, Naiya. And when I was researching for this book, and now that even I am a mother, you would be surprised, Naiya, in India, only as few as 22% women feel that they're taught the value of self confidence as kids. The most commonly taught values that we as parents give our girls is, hard work and respect. So that is also important, but somewhere down the line, when you're making those career choices, when let's say you're choosing to start a business on your own, or going for a high stakes role, or looking for a promotion, a high visibility role, self confidence plays a very important role. And that is something we're really not ingraining in our girls. And I feel that you're right, is very important that we as parents go that extra mile in leaving a better narrative for our girls. And for that matter, for our kids, be it boys or girls, just be gender neutral and change the narrative for them. Let them choose their path of choosing, and let them be unrestricted by their gender. I think that's bang on what you're doing there. So Naya, just as a natural extension to this, Baby Chakra, of course, is a community for moms, is a community for women. What role do you see Baby Chakra playing in all of this, and sort of how is it an extension of your vision for like a more gender equal, or a more fruitful world for our kids out there? What role do you see Baby Chakra playing
Nishtha, I mean, the team knows this, right? And the team actually builds this out daily because it is their vision too, right? Which is that we want to be a part of every Indian family because we truly believe, and only if we believe that we can support in making the right care choices,
there?
right? Now, as we do this, right, I think there are two pieces that we're very, very particular about, right? One is about ensuring that we have a very clear care ecosystem built out, which is based on expertise. So we actually partner with more than 10,000 doctors,
Wow.
right, who are part of our community of care,
Hmm.
right? And they speak in different languages, right? So we are able to bring across expert care to our community of mothers and to their families at very relevant touch points,
Right.
right? I think that's one piece. So the expert trust based care in your language on
Hmm.
demand, I think, is a very important part of our philosophy.
That's great.
The second piece that is really critical is also the piece around who is then therefore giving care in the family, right?
Hmm.
And this is where we've made the narrative of equal parenting, we're trying to take it mainstream,
Hmm.
right? So we started off this journey about 2.5 years back,
Hmm.
where we said, let's start talking about the role that fathers play in parenting,
Right.
right? And we launched this initiative across 25 corporates. This is
Hmm.
about 2.5 years back, where we touched more than 6,000 fathers who
Oh.
were, young dads. And we basically asked them, what does it mean to be an equal parent? And what does it mean to be a father today? And
Hmm.
what we found, Nishtha, was there's so many implicit biases that
Right.
even young fathers have to deal with if they want to play their full potential and their full role as a father. right?
Wow.
Simple things like we had these anecdotes. Simple things like I need to go drop my child off to school, and my boss will tell me, but why? Why can't your wife do it? Right? Or
Wow.
simple things like I need to attend my child's PTA today,
Hmm.
parent teacher meeting today, and
Hmm.
my boss will tell me, but why can't your wife do it? Right?
Wow.
And the man is like, but I'm the father. I this is my role. I need to do it. Right?
Hmm.
Or
Right.
paternity leave, right? Big issue. Today you have maternity leave institutionalized. You have, the 6 months maternity leave, but pat leave is extremely important because that is the point of time where a husband and the wife are bonding together with the child,
True.
right? So I
Yeah.
think these are still issues that, I mean, at Baby Chakra, we talk a lot about,
Hmm.
right? We're actually celebrating now stories and also highlighting stories of fathers
Hmm.
playing the role of equal parents,
Wow.
right? Single dads as well. And I
Right.
think that is how we're also trying to influence a narrative. And when it reaches mothers and, families in tier two, tier three, tier four,
Right.
set role models for them to even talk to their husbands about or their spouses about.
Wow.
Right? So I think it's very interesting to see. We've had people write in saying that I didn't know I could demand this from my husband, or I didn't know my husband was maybe facing this bias from playing to his full potential as a father.
Right.
These are the kind of changes we want to bring through with the Baby Chakra platform.
This is so great, Naya, and you're actually right. Having this dialogue on and just bringing out all these stories is very important. And I think somewhere, Naya, since of course Baby Chakra is also an online community, the digital revolution in our country, we see so many women who are online now, though the global averages are much higher, as much as 50%, but India is still struggling there, some bit. And we also see so many women who are trying to make a living out of their digital platforms, like selling products, being content creators, influencers. So you running this platform, and of course having your major chunk on the Baby Chakra platform as women from tier 2, tier 3 cities who do have those aspirations, what is your advice to them if they want to take on the digital platform in terms of managing a career, be it full time or part time?
So, I mean, I think the big part to this is, first of all, when you take on being on a digital platform, right? I mean, first of all, kudos for just making that start, right? Because I mean, how do we transition from being a society where women are now becoming, or are slowly trickling into becoming consumers of content to becoming creators of content, right? Because the minute you start creating content, you start shaping the narrative, right? Right now, I mean, this is one of the big problems we discuss in tech. Nishan, you're probably, of course, aware of this, right? Which is that too few people, too few women, right, creating content online or creating the algorithms or the products that shape digital behaviors online,
Right.
right? So I just want to call out, I think, credit to all the digital creators who are women, because you have taken a very, very important step in just getting your voice out there. And you've added a very interesting perspective, unique perspective, an important perspective to the online dialogue,
True.
right? So I think that's the first thing I do want to call out, right? It takes guts, it takes courage.
True.
The second thing I want to call out is like always stay authentic, right?
Hmm.
Because eventually people are looking for authentic voices. Right
Right.
now, we as a platform work with a community of more than 50,000 mom stars,
Hmm.
right? Who are moms who basically help other mothers, right? On Baby Chakra as an app or help them across our social assets, etc.
Hmm.
Now, why are these mom stars so special? Right? Because they bring in their own unique experiences when they're helping another mother out,
Right.
right? So I think this whole authentic voice is very critical when you're creating content online, because people will then seek you out
Right.
versus looking for someone else who's maybe creating very similar copycat content, right?
True.
And I think the third thing is just don't give up. So the process of content creation, the process of getting a followership, the process of monetizing, right,
Hmm.
is a very slow process. But
Right.
then there are inflection points, right? You reach a point where there's a suddenly like there's a plateau, and you're like, oh my god, this is not moving anywhere. And then
Right.
suddenly you find the next burst of followers, because keep on looking at your data, look at like what your analytics are telling you, right? What
Right.
are your consumers, or what are your consumers of content resonating most with? If
Hmm.
you're looking at monetizing your content, what do the brands want from you as a
Right.
content creator,
Right.
right? And like work with your strategy and evolve your strategy to basically say, this is where I'm seeing the maximum traction, right?
Right.
Don't give up, but constantly monitor the data and the analytics that basically help you inform you on how to get more relevant to your users as well as how to monetize better.
True. Yeah, I think that is bang on. So, for instance, I interviewed Chavi Mittal also, and she has close to 7 million followers across platforms. And she said the same very thing, because most people, when they start out, they're only tracking, let's say, followers. But she says, that's very important, as you mentioned, to have clearly defined key performance indices for, whatever you're doing, so that is it the revenue number I should be tracking? Is it to do with the call outs or the shout outs I'm getting per post? How are people interacting with my content? That's also very important. So defining that, having a clear vision to start with, is very important, of what problem you're catering to, and authentically doing that, rather than just giving into fads or micro trends. I think that's very important. So Naya, you mentioned about mom stars too, and in the book you shared this very incident which really touched me. That one of the mom stars, there was some shoot that had to be done with CNBC in Mumbai, and she was like, "No, I." You suggested that maybe your husband can take an off on that day to take care of the kid, and she's like, "Oh yes, you're right. That is something I can do." And she finally made it for the shoot. The husband did take an off, and the one statement which I quote in my other interviews also, which I credit to you, is like, you say that as women we have to, or for that matter even men, just question the status quo. That's very important to start with. If you're not happy with certain things, start questioning, and start seeking that support from your internal state, from your family, and even the organizations that you are a part of. And I see you doing that too. Like, I find you very assertive in the way you run your business, the way you're so open on social media too. But most women struggle with being assertive. So what is your advice there to women, that how can they be more assertive? How can they more confidently question the status quo around them?
I mean, I would go back to like, what drives you,
Hmm.
right? I mean, it's basically that, because I mean, I think, I would like to think it's not just a women issue. I think even men, right? I mean, I think
Yeah.
if you truly believe that there's something that you want,
Hmm.
right, then you will probably do whatever it takes to make it real,
True.
right? And I
Hmm.
think, if as long as you find what it is that you want,
Hmm.
that is when you will go after it, and
Hmm.
then challenge everything, right? Challenge the status quo. Why can't I have it, right?
Right.
What do I do to make it real,
Yeah.
right? How do I align people around me so
Hmm.
that we can together make this become a reality for all of us? Do people believe in it as much as I do, right?
True.
Can I find enough believers as well in what we are aspiring to? So I think it's all about, having that sort of, one is about challenging status quo, but I think the bigger point is that, do you want it enough, right?
Right.
And if it is that you want it enough,
Hmm.
then how far will you go to get to make it happen? And I
True.
think then, as part of that journey, whether it's, you be aggressive or you be diplomatic, right? Whether it is you go for it alone or you go for it with the team, right?
Right.
Whatever you do, right? All your actions basically stem from that.
Yeah.
So
I
I think
think.
that's really where it comes from. I think just knowing what you want,
True.
and whether you want it enough. And if you do, then I think it'll naturally come to you on how you want to get it.
I think that's very important. You're right. So Naya, this leads me to my next question. Like, even in the book, I talk about this power punch framework, where I say that, be it a man or a woman, you cannot really create your own success. At the end of the day, there are those influencers around you which need to play the role in your journey. Like, for instance, for working women, it is how the leadership, like the way the leadership pans out their vision when it comes to inclusion, or human resources, how are the policies, how are they implemented, your reporting manager, because at times, what if the vision and the policy is in the place, but if your boss is not really acting up on the grassroots realities, you can't do much about it. So all these people have a role to play in your journey. So when it comes to your journey, even as an entrepreneur, as a mom, which are some of these influencers you would like to call out, who have supported you in this journey, and even for our audience out there, like the support which they can expect from influencers in their life? So what's your take on that?
Sure. I mean, I think influence can come from multiple aspects, right? I think, absolutely. I mean, I think we've been very fortunate. We've had, I've had personally, you know, see, I've never, when I was married and when I had a baby, I never had a boss,
Hmm.
right? I mean, I just had, like, I had a boss, or like a reporting manager I had to report to, probably when I was very young.
Hmm.
right? So I've actually not known bosses per se,
Hmm.
right? So I can't say I know bosses and how they influence, right? But I do want to call out, I think, the role, I think, three big influences, right? One has been, of course, apart from family and, my mother and my husband,
Hmm.
I think one big influence has been my board, right? So, when I was pregnant, I remember my first feeling of self doubt, right? How would my board react? Because they knew I was in the middle of a very critical, like I would be starting fundraising in a few months, and I
Right.
was worried, right? And I think that, when I walked in the board meeting and I told my board that, I was pregnant, and the reaction, right? It was a bunch of men, by the way, Nishta, right? So Arihan Patni and Karan and Atin Sharma. So I still remember the board, right? But the reaction was so positive, so supportive,
Hmm.
right? It gave me so much strength,
Right.
right? So I just want to call out, I think that was one big experience for
Hmm.
me where I realized, you know, where for the first time I questioned myself. And I think, a bunch of men on my board came through, right?
Wow.
More than came through in terms of support. The second big influence I've had is actually for my team,
Hmm.
right? So we have a bunch of young moms and dads on my team,
Hmm.
right? And I want to call out, for instance, one of my first team members, Nena. Right now, Naina's a young mother. Her child Shaurya is all of maybe 4 years old now, 4 to 5 years old now, right? And I've seen her before I became pregnant. I saw the way she handled, work, the way she handled, her like pregnancy, how she came back to work, the energy, the gusto, right? And I think she inspired so many of us who
Wow.
then became mums in Baby Chakra,
Right.
right? Or dads in Baby Chakra, as the case may be. And today she inspires all of us today as well, right? So I think you look across your peer sets and you see people who inspire you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the third big influence is from fellow entrepreneurs, right?
Right.
If you look across, and I know you refer to many of them in your book, Nishtha, which is why I find your book super inspiring. But I mean, there are women who we connect with, women entrepreneurs, we all connect together, right? And I think you find stories of, Vinita, or you find stories of Ashwini, right? Matri Den, who are young
Right.
moms themselves, right? I've been with Ashwini on, like, the Grace Harper contest. We were winners. We were in the Valley. She had
Right.
just had a second child. She was pumping, right? So seeing those stories play out, right?
Right.
I think those are inspiring, right? Because you see women go through this themselves, and you're like, this is possible. It's very doable. So I think these are the stories that I think inspire.
I think that is so true. And that was one of the motivations for the book too, when I wanted to bring out a story in every field, be it finance, entrepreneurs, women in science, technology, mathematicians, sports people, like you name a field, and I tried to bring out a story there. Because, it also shows, Naya, especially in the Indian context, as many as 70% young girls feel more motivated to pursue their passions, and they really feel they can have it all once they read these relatable stories. And that's, I think, the best thing that even you're doing with Baby Chakra, with your mom stars, getting all the stories out there. So I think I just move on to my next question, Naya. So yeah, what made you say yes to Awakening the Rainmaker? Because I remember it was we hadn't connected before that per se. So what made you say yes to it? And now that you've read it, what are some of your favorite bits from it? Why would you recommend it to people out there?
So I said yes to the Awakening the Rainmaker because I think it's a very important book, right? I mean, exactly what he said, Nishta. When I was also looking for stories to inspire myself, right? Or when I talk to other young women, I interact with so many young women on a daily basis, right? In my team,
Right.
outside when they reach out to me for, angel investments, etc. I think the one thing is, like, all the stories that I talked about, like the three influences I talked about, right? They're all that have happened to me personally,
Hmm.
right? And it's never been documented anywhere. Or there's no, if it's not, imagine if it not happened to me, right? Where would I derive inspiration from,
Right.
right? So I think it's really important that you have a book that basically, like you said very correctly, right? That basically makes women like us understand that women like us are not from another
Hmm.
planet. It's literally people like us.
Yes.
They're going through similar challenges. Here are some ways in which some of them have been able to overcome some of these challenges.
Right.
Might be helpful to you. By the very least, here is what might inspire you, right? To live and fight another day, pretty
True.
much, right? So I
Yeah.
think this is what really made me say yes. And of course, when I met you, and I was like, this is a young mom, right? She's got an amazing professional background. She's clearly passionate about writing this book,
Yeah.
right? So I was like, this is she means it. Like she wants to get this to the next level, right? So I think that inspired me. These two things really inspired me.
Thank you so
Can't,
much.
yeah, no, it's true. It's absolutely true. I can't pick a favorite, but I want to say this. Sucleen, who's recently joined the group, she's joined the group as our head of CEO of brands,
Yeah.
features in the book.
True.
And one of the first talking points we had when we were introduced to each other was like, wait, aren't you in Awakening the Rainmaker?
Yeah, that is actually good.
So I think you've brought people together
Yeah.
in very many ways than you realize, Nishta.
Yeah, actually, I'm really happy, and I'm really happy, especially the book becoming a bestseller within a month of the launch, and the amount of media attention or talking about, buzzing about in different communities it has gotten. I think you're right. It was really important to put something together which can resonate with so many people. And one of my main intentions with the book, Naya, was also, of course, not trying to start a revolution or something, but trying to be very practical with it. Like, because this topic can get a little touchy for many people, you can get emotional about it too. But what I tried to do was being like, when you talk about gender equality, focus on the equality bit of thing rather than the gender bit of things. Like, really talk about what benefits it bodes for everybody, be it a man, a woman, organization, or countries for that matter. And I'm really happy that it's resonating on that point. So this has been a great conversation, Naya. Thank you so much. And we'll just end with a quick rapid fire round so that the Baby Chakra
Sure.
community and our listeners get to know a little more about you. So you're all ready?
Yeah, I guess so. I have no
All, all fired up. Okay. So we'll start. Okay. One word that describes you the best.
optimistic.
Oh, that's nice. Who's your role model?
My mom,
When are you most inspired?
when I'm challenged,
Nice. One thing which you want the world to become.
equal.
Oh. And on the final note, one takeaway for the audience from this session.
Don't give up.
I think that's been a beautiful session. Thank you so much, Naya. And I hope our audiences also had a great time listening into this. Thank you to the Baby Chakra team for organizing this. And yeah, take care. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Naya. I hope you had a good time too.
Absolutely. It was fantastic. Congratulations again. I mean, it's a fantastic book. Highly recommended read.
Thank you so much.
Right. Cheers. Thanks, Nishta.